Have you ever experienced something so profound, so deeply spiritual, that words seemed to fall short when you tried to explain it to others? That moment when the universe seemed to whisper its secrets directly to your soul, yet when you attempted to share it, something precious was lost in translation. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. There exists within each of us a sacred inner chamber where the divine and human meet in perfect harmony. It's a realm of mystery and revelation that transcends language itself. Has this ever happened to you? Have you felt that stirring within, that moment when something shifts inside and you glimpse a truth so beautiful that it almost hurts to behold it? These are the moments Neville Goddard spoke about throughout his profound teachings. In our hyper-connected world of constant sharing and oversharing, we've lost something precious, the ancient wisdom of sacred silence. Goddard understood that certain spiritual revelations aren't meant to be broadcast, but guarded, not out of fear or secrecy, but out of deep reverence for their power and purity. The most profound truths are often those held closest to the heart. Stay with me until the end of this journey, because what you're about to discover might fundamentally change how you approach your spiritual life and the precious revelations that grace your path. Neville Goddard wasn't concerned with fame or recognition. Despite possessing extraordinary spiritual gifts and insights, he approached his calling with remarkable humility. His concern wasn't showcasing his abilities, but serving humanity through them. Each morning began with scripture, each revelation preceded by prayer, each insight dedicated to the highest good of all. This humble devotion allowed him access to spiritual dimensions many only dream of experiencing. Through his teachings, we glimpse a profound truth, that real spiritual power moves silently, like the roots beneath a mighty oak, unseen, yet providing the foundation for everything visible and beautiful above. What makes Goddard's perspective so revolutionary is his insistence that certain experiences must remain unspoken, not because they're forbidden, but because they're consecrated. When we prematurely share profound spiritual encounters, we risk diminishing their power and subjecting them to misunderstanding by those who haven't yet developed eyes to see or ears to hear such mysteries. The mysteries of the soul exist in that tender space between breath and prayer, where only the divine presence listens. These sacred moments weren't designed for casual conversation, but for reverent contemplation, the kind that transforms us from within until our very lives become living testimonies to the truths we've encountered. As we explore these 7 sacred things Goddard taught us never to share freely, you might begin to recognize experiences from your own life, moments when something within you knew to keep silent about what you'd witnessed, felt, or understood. If these teachings about spiritual discretion and sacred silence have resonated with your journey, consider subscribing to dive deeper into Neville Goddard's timeless wisdom. Join our community of seekers exploring the profound dimensions of consciousness and manifestation. Every new video offers insights to transform your understanding of spiritual principles and practical application in daily life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the true nature of spiritual power. Throughout Goddard's remarkable body of work runs a golden thread of wisdom about the eternal essence of the soul and the transformative power of thought. Yet amidst these profound revelations, he consistently emphasized a truth many spiritual seekers overlook. Authentic spiritual power must be cradled in humility. This paradoxical revelation challenges our modern mindset where sharing every experience has become second nature. When we encounter something profound, our first instinct is often to broadcast it, to validate it through others' reactions. But Goddard understood that spiritual power misused or prematurely exposed can distort the very light it was meant to reveal, like a delicate photograph exposed too soon. What's fascinating is how this principle of sacred silence appears across spiritual traditions as a hidden truth about our inner journey. Goddard taught that maintaining silence around certain spiritual experiences isn't weakness, it's profound strength. Some divine encounters and glimpses of eternity simply cannot be translated into human language without diminishing their impact and meaning. In this way, discretion becomes not secrecy, but an expression of love, protecting what is precious from misinterpretation. Consider your own life's most meaningful revelations. Haven't the deepest ones often been those you felt least able to articulate? Those moments of clarity that transformed your perspective, but seemed to exist beyond the realm of language. This is the territory Goddard invites us to honor through mindful silence. Even Christ himself, the embodiment of truth, chose to veil his most profound teachings in parables. Though he could have spoken plainly, he understood that spiritual wisdom is not merely intellectual, it must awaken at the right moment in the listener's consciousness. Like seeds that germinate in their season, divine truths unfold according to the soul's readiness to receive them. This divine discretion ensures that sacred knowledge blooms at precisely the perfect moment for each individual's spiritual development. The wisdom here isn't about creating unnecessary mystery, but recognizing that certain truths require preparation. Just as we wouldn't hand advanced calculus to someone still learning basic arithmetic, some spiritual revelations require previous understandings to be integrated before they can be fully comprehended. If you've experienced this phenomenon in your own spiritual journey, write "sacred silence" in the comments below. The path of wisdom often requires us to discern not only what to share, but when, how, and with whom. As Goddard illuminated through his teaching, there exists a profound difference between keeping secrets out of fear and preserving mysteries out of reverence. These 7 things Goddard spoke of aren't secrets shrouded in fear or hidden knowledge available only to a select few. Rather, they represent profound lessons in spiritual lore, consecrated wisdom that emerges naturally when we honor the sacred relationship between the visible and invisible realms. Their protection isn't about restriction, but about preserving the integrity of our spiritual journey, much like a gardener protects delicate seedlings until they're strong enough to withstand the elements. The first of these sacred things speaks directly to the core of spiritual experience, those personal, intimate encounters with the divine. Consider those rare, transcendent moments when your soul touches infinity, when prayer transcends words and becomes pure presence, when peace fills every shadow of your being, when the veil between worlds grows thin. These revelations carry a vibration so pure, so transformative that casual conversation simply cannot contain them. When we attempt to translate these encounters into ordinary language, we inevitably diminish their power. Even more concerning is how sharing such experiences prematurely opens them to misinterpretation by those who haven't yet experienced similar communion. The resulting disconnect can create doubt where there was certainty, confusion where there was clarity. This is why Goddard taught that our deepest revelations require discernment rather than disclosure. Behind this wisdom lies a profound psychological insight, the eternal struggle between ego and spirit. The ego, always seeking validation and recognition, wishes to explain these divine encounters, to catalog, categorize, and claim them as personal achievements. But the spirit has no such agenda. It simply wishes to live the experience, to embody the revelation, to be transformed by it from within. Goddard beautifully described the soul's awakening as dawn, within the heart, beginning quietly, imperceptibly, before the world takes notice. This hidden transformation follows natural rhythms that cannot be rushed or displayed prematurely. Just as a master chef knows when not to disturb a delicate soufflé as it rises, the wise soul understands when to preserve silence around budding spiritual insights. The most powerful testimony isn't found in proclamation, but in embodiment. When divine encounters truly transform us, our lives themselves become the evidence, our increased compassion, our deepened peace, our expanded capacity for love. No words could speak more eloquently than a life illuminated from within by genuine spiritual awakening. This concept of sacred silence isn't about denying our experiences, but allowing them the space to fully mature and integrate. Have you ever felt that inner knowing that some experiences are too precious for casual conversation? Type divine silence in the comments if you felt that quiet certainty that some revelations are meant to be treasured rather than told. As we continue exploring these sacred boundaries, we discover that spiritual maturity involves discerning not just what to share, but also recognizing those inner battles that require their own sacred space to unfold. The true power of spiritual transformation reveals itself not through our words, but through our presence. Divine experiences require time to mature within us, to take root in the soil of our consciousness before they can bear fruit in our daily lives. Just as a seed must remain hidden beneath the earth until the perfect moment when sunlight calls it forth, our deepest revelations need their season of darkness before they can emerge transformed. This hidden alchemy is why Goddard emphasized letting others witness the fruit of your spiritual communion through your character and actions, rather than through elaborate declarations. When genuine transformation occurs, it radiates naturally through increased patience, deeper compassion, and a steadier presence during life's inevitable challenges. This living testimony speaks volumes beyond what any words could convey. Now, regarding the second sacred thing Goddard advised us to hold close, our inner spiritual battles. With remarkable insight, he recognized that every soul must walk through its own valleys of testing. These personal crucibles aren't punishments inflicted by a vengeful deity, but profound opportunities for growth, carefully calibrated to refine the gold within us. Just as precious metals require intense heat to separate impurities, our consciousness evolves through challenges designed to reveal our authentic essence. What's particularly fascinating about this hidden truth is how it contradicts our modern mindset of transparency at all costs. The contemporary approach encourages us to process everything externally, to share every struggle, doubt, and dark night of the soul. Yet Goddard discovered something counterintuitive. Speaking openly about our spiritual struggles before they've completed their transformative work can actually diminish their power to heal. When we prematurely expose these inner battlegrounds to others, we inadvertently invite their opinions, judgments, and well-intentioned advice to shape what should be guided solely by divine understanding. The journey becomes cluttered with external voices precisely when we need clear inner reception. There exists a sacred privacy in suffering, not a secrecy born of shame, but a protected space where grace can complete its mysterious work unhindered. Consider how a butterfly must struggle alone within its chrysalis to develop the strength needed for flight. Well-meaning attempts to help by cutting open the cocoon would actually prevent the necessary development. Similarly, our inner metamorphosis requires its own sacred space of private communion with the divine. This principle applies to so many dimensions of our inner landscape. If you've ever felt that some personal challenges needed to be worked through privately before sharing them, type sacred struggle in the comments below. The wisdom of this approach becomes even clearer when we consider how Christ himself demonstrated this principle through his own moments of spiritual testing. Even the most profound spiritual exemplar in history demonstrated this principle of sacred solitude. In his moment of greatest anguish, Jesus himself withdrew from his closest disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane. Though he asked them to keep watch nearby, he moved a stone's throw away to face his deepest trial in private communion with the Father. This profound revelation shows us that authentic spiritual transformation often requires a sacred boundary between our innermost struggles and even our closest companions. Christ's suffering wasn't performed for an audience or displayed as evidence of his devotion. It was a deeply personal metamorphosis, the final surrender before his ultimate purpose could be fulfilled. In this, we discover a blueprint for our own spiritual journey. The most profound breakthroughs often happen in those private sanctuaries where only divine presence witnesses our vulnerability. Goddard's remarkable insight into this hidden dimension of spiritual development revealed that our greatest growth typically occurs precisely when the heart surrenders its battles to divine love in silence. This counterintuitive wisdom challenges our modern approach to healing, where we're encouraged to process everything externally. Speaking of our pain, prematurely can actually disrupt the delicate alchemy taking place within. It's like stepping away from the altar before the sacred ceremony is complete. What makes this especially challenging is that others, no matter how well-intentioned, often cannot truly comprehend the language of our tears. Each soul's journey is uniquely calibrated, and the divine communication happening within your deepest struggles contains codes and patterns designed specifically for your evolution. External perspectives, while sometimes helpful, can introduce static into this intimate frequency between your soul and its source. The third sacred thing Goddard advised us to protect relates to the vision of our divine purpose. Every soul incarnates with a specific calling, a unique contribution to make that transcends circumstance and time. This purpose isn't merely a career or role, but a frequency of being that only you can embody. However, divine purpose rarely reveals itself all at once. It unfolds gradually, like dawn spreading across the horizon, first just a hint of light, then steadily increasing illumination. The vulnerability of purpose in its nascent stage cannot be overstated. Speaking prematurely about your deepest calling exposes this delicate vision to energies that can distort its purity. Misunderstanding from those who cannot yet see what you glimpse, envy from those threatened by your light, or doubt from those whose mindset cannot comprehend your particular path. These external frequencies can cloud what was given in crystalline clarity during moments of divine communion. If you've ever felt an inner knowing about your purpose, but sensed it wasn't yet time to speak it aloud, type "sacred purpose" in the comments below. As this divine purpose begins to take form within us, Goddard offered profound guidance about how it reveals itself, not through announcement, but through alignment with the rhythm of universal law. The blueprint of your divine purpose isn't delivered in a single dramatic revelation, it unfolds through a sacred choreography of discovery. Neville Goddard illuminated this hidden truth by explaining that our life's deepest calling is held within the mind of God, revealed to us gradually through the interplay of prayer, service, and patience. This progressive disclosure follows a perfect timing that respects our readiness to receive and embody each new dimension of understanding. This revelation process resembles learning to hear a complex melody, at first perceiving only fragments, then gradually discerning the full composition as we attune ourselves more precisely to the divine frequency. What makes this especially challenging for the modern mindset is our cultural obsession with immediate clarity and public declaration. Yet Goddard understood that announcing our spiritual mission prematurely creates a vulnerability where ego can easily masquerade as soul's calling. Perhaps the most profound evidence supporting this principle comes from examining Christ's own journey. Though fully divine from birth, Jesus lived quietly for 30 years within the simple rhythm of ordinary days before his public ministry began. This remarkable restraint reveals a cosmic pattern. His purpose was fully known in heaven, yet unveiled on earth only when the perfect convergence of readiness and timing allowed it to manifest in full power. This example carries revolutionary implications for our own journey. If even the Son of God embraced 30 years of sacred silence before his purpose fully blossomed, how much more should we honor the incubation period of our own calling? Our instant gratification culture pushes us to announce half-formed visions prematurely, yet the natural law of manifestation follows different principles. One of Goddard's most transformative insights illuminates why protecting our emerging purpose is so crucial. What we consistently dwell upon becomes our reality. This principle operates with mathematical precision. Our dominant thought patterns literally shape the substance of our experience. Therefore, purpose must be protected not merely through external silence, but through disciplined thought and focused attention. Instead of diluting our vision's power through premature announcement, we must nourish it through aligned action and faithful imagination. The seeds of destiny require a particular environment to flourish, one where they're shielded from harsh judgment or skepticism until they've developed sufficient resilience to withstand external energies. This mental discipline represents a form of spiritual stewardship, carefully tending the garden of consciousness where purpose takes root. The masterful practitioner learns to cultivate their vision internally until its momentum becomes unstoppable, rather than seeking external validation for seedlings not yet strong enough to withstand scrutiny. If you've noticed how protecting your dreams from premature exposure seems to help them materialize more effectively, type "thought becomes reality" in the comments below. The wisdom of protected purpose leads us naturally to consider the fourth sacred thing, the hidden power of intention and how it must be refined before release. The natural unfolding of divine purpose follows an organic rhythm that requires no announcement or declaration. When we live in deep alignment with spiritual principles, our calling reveals itself through our being rather than through our proclamations. As Goddard beautifully expressed, the life itself becomes the message, a living testimony more powerful than any words could convey. This behind-the-scenes transformation happens through consistent, faithful action aligned with our highest understanding. The journey of purpose reminds me of how master craftspeople often work, quietly, steadily, with full attention on the creation rather than on audience reaction. They trust the excellence of their work to speak for itself when the time is right. Similarly, when we focus on embodying our purpose rather than explaining it, we create an authentic momentum that eventually becomes undeniable. Not because we declared our importance, but because divine light naturally radiates through aligned deeds. This leads us to the fourth sacred thing Goddard advised us never to freely share: the secret intentions of our heart. This insight reveals the incredible creative power we wield through thought and intention. Every desire, every quiet hope you hold carries a vibrational frequency that shapes the substance of reality around you. Yet the raw power of intention requires refinement before it's ready to manifest in the world. What makes this particularly challenging is the divided nature of the human heart. Part of us genuinely longs for divine purpose and authentic contribution, while another part yearns for recognition, validation, and acclaim. This inner division creates a mixed signal that dilutes our manifestation power. The revolutionary insight Goddard offered is that intentions must undergo spiritual refinement before their full creative potential can be realized. The soul must learn to distinguish between authentic desire and ego-based wanting, separating light from shadow, aligning personal will with divine love. Only then does intention become truly sacred and capable of manifesting with precision and grace. Jesus himself taught this principle when he instructed, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen." The room he referenced isn't merely a physical space, but the inner sanctuary of consciousness, where our deepest intentions can be purified away from external influences. In this private communion, desires aligned with our highest good are strengthened, while those arising from fear, lack, or separation naturally dissolve in the presence of divine love. This sacred refinement happens most effectively in silence and privacy, away from the distorting influences of others' opinions, expectations, or energies. Have you noticed how sharing your intentions too soon sometimes seems to drain them of power? Type, "Intention requires privacy" in the comments if this resonates with your experience. As we explore the deeper dimensions of intention, we discover why this inner sanctuary Jesus described represents the perfect environment for our creative power to align with divine will. Now I want to go even deeper into the significance of this inner sanctuary Christ described. The room he referred to transcends physical space. It represents the sacred chamber within your own heart, where divine communion happens. In this private sanctuary, your intentions undergo a profound transformation. Rather than being shaped by human will, societal expectations, or external validation, they align with divine harmony and universal principles. This hidden dimension of manifestation reveals why premature disclosure of intentions can be so detrimental to their fulfillment. When we speak our deepest aims before they've been fully refined, we expose them to the frequencies of others' expectations, doubts, and limiting beliefs. Even well-meaning friends and family can unknowingly introduce distortions into what was originally pure inspiration. The integrity of your vision depends on this period of protected development. Goddard brilliantly described this refinement process as spiritual attunement, a recalibration of your inner compass to align with higher frequencies. He revealed that intention serves as the actual blueprint for the soul's creative force. Like an architect's drawing that precedes physical construction, your focused intention creates the energetic template from which physical reality eventually emerges. The revolutionary insight here concerns the vibrational quality of intention. When your desires resonate with love, unity, and abundance, they naturally attract circumstances and experiences that are life-giving and expansive. However, when intentions arise from pride, fear, or separation, they construct invisible barriers rather than pathways of possibility. This hidden mechanism operates with perfect precision regardless of our awareness of it. Christ's own life demonstrates this principle of holy restraint with remarkable consistency. His healing works flowed from complete unity with divine will, rather than from personal desire for recognition. Have you noticed how he often instructed those he healed not to tell others about the miracle? This wasn't false modesty, but profound spiritual wisdom about the power of protected intention. To reveal a sacred intention before its complete refinement is like showing an unfinished painting to those who cannot yet envision its completed form. Their feedback, however well-intentioned, is based on incomplete understanding and can derail the artist's original vision. Jesus modeled this masterful restraint, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and transforming lives without announcing his plans or seeking approval for his actions. This principle of refined intention before expression applies to countless dimensions of life, from creative projects and career transitions to relationship healing and personal transformation. If you've ever felt an intuitive reluctance to share your deepest dreams prematurely, Type sacred intention in the comments below. As we continue exploring these principles of spiritual discretion, we discover perhaps the most challenging yet liberating practice of all, the sacred nature of forgiveness and why it too requires a special kind of silence. The fifth sacred thing Goddard advised us never to freely share reveals perhaps the most transformative spiritual practice of all, the full measure of whom we have forgiven. In Goddard's profound understanding, forgiveness represents the highest act the soul can perform, that sacred moment when human love transcends its limitations and becomes divine in nature. To truly forgive is to release another from the prison of our judgment, while simultaneously freeing ourselves from the bondage of resentment. What makes this principle particularly challenging for our modern mindset is how it contradicts our cultural tendency toward performative virtue. When we speak too soon or too publicly about our acts of forgiveness, we risk transforming what should be a sacred act of grace into a public declaration of our own spiritual advancement. The hidden truth is that authentic forgiveness requires no announcement. Its power lies precisely in its privacy. Forgiveness in its purest form isn't something performed for others to witness or applaud. It exists as a sacred exchange between the individual soul and the divine presence, that moment of profound decision when we choose love instead of resentment, peace instead of pride, freedom instead of the false power that comes from holding others captive in our judgment. This behind-the-scenes transformation creates ripples that extend far beyond what public declarations could ever accomplish. Christ's own example illuminates this principle with stunning clarity. His most profound act of forgiveness wasn't proclaimed from a mountaintop, but whispered from the cross. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." This quiet surrender in the face of ultimate betrayal reveals the true nature of divine forgiveness, not a performance, but a profound inner release. Goddard recognized in this the essence of spiritual maturity, that authentic forgiveness needs no audience or acknowledgement to fulfill its purpose. It operates through vibration rather than proclamation, creating shifts in consciousness that transcend physical proximity or verbal expression. When we silently forgive, releasing all judgment from our heart, we set in motion waves of healing energy that transform both ourselves and the one we've forgiven, often without their conscious awareness. This hidden mechanism works because consciousness itself is the true foundation of reality. The energy patterns we hold within our minds create ripple effects throughout the quantum field, affecting relationships and circumstances in ways that often appear miraculous. A heart that has truly forgiven radiates a different frequency than one still harboring judgment, regardless of what the lips proclaim. The revolutionary insight here is that forgiveness becomes most potent precisely when it remains unannounced, when it exists as a private sanctuary of peace within your own consciousness, rather than as a public declaration of virtue. If you've ever experienced the quiet power of releasing judgment without needing to announce it, type silent healing in the comments below. As we explore these sacred boundaries of spiritual discretion, we discover perhaps the most intimate dimension of all, the conversation between the soul and God, and why this communion, too, requires its own sacred privacy. The transformative power of forgiveness manifests not through public declarations, but through the subtle shifts in our being. Goddard observed that speaking too frequently about whom we've forgiven often has an unintended consequence. It reawakens and reinforces the very memory of injury we had released, subtly anchoring us once again to pain we thought we'd transcended. This insight reveals why authentic forgiveness operates most effectively in the realm of silence. Instead of proclaiming our forgiveness, Goddard urged those seeking genuine peace to simply live it, allowing it to be known not through words, but through the unmistakable evidence of a transformed consciousness. Gentleness in presence, tranquility in eyes, and compassion in actions. This lived forgiveness creates a resonance far more powerful than any verbal declaration. Others sense the shift in our energy field, even without understanding its source. The unspoken eloquence of a heart that has truly released judgment. Now I want to go even deeper into perhaps the most sacred dimension of spiritual life, the intimate conversation between the soul and God. There exists a depth of communion that no human language can adequately capture, a profound silence where heaven and earth meet in perfect harmony. Neville Goddard described prayer not as a transaction or petition, but as the tuning of the soul to the infinite, not merely a request, but a relationship, a vibration between the created and the Creator. In the sanctuary of this sacred stillness, something remarkable happens. The soul remembers its origin. Like a drop of water recognizing it has always been part of the ocean, consciousness awakens to its eternal nature beyond the limitations of time and space. This behind-the-scenes reunion represents the essence of spiritual experience, yet it exists beyond what words can faithfully convey. What makes these divine intimacies especially precious is that they arrive not as proofs of our spiritual advancement, but as invitations to profound humility. When God speaks to the human heart, it rarely comes as audible sound, but as that peace which surpasses all understanding, a gentle whisper in the spirit saying, "Be still and know that I am God." These sacred moments are simply too holy to share casually or exploit for spiritual status. The revolutionary insight Goddard offered is that attempting to explain these divine encounters inevitably reduces them, while parading them before others actually profanes their sacred nature. The paradox of spiritual experience is that its deepest revelations resist translation into language. They exist as pure knowing, direct perception, or embodied wisdom that transcends the limitations of words. This is why authentic spiritual teachers throughout history have emphasized the journey of direct experience over mere intellectual understanding. The most profound truths cannot be told, but must be realized from within, a process of inner recognition rather than external information. If you've ever experienced a moment of divine communion that felt too sacred for words, type "holy silence" in the comments below. As we continue exploring these principles of sacred discretion, we discover that even the voice of God itself requires a special kind of listening, one that transcends ego and opens us to genuine spiritual guidance. The ability to hear the divine voice with clarity requires a particular inner posture that Goddard identified with remarkable precision. It's most distinctly heard by those who listen without pride. This counterintuitive insight reveals why spiritual communion often deepens in direct proportion to our willingness to surrender the ego's need for recognition. The authentic mystical experience arrives as gift rather than achievement, as grace rather than reward for spiritual accomplishment. This illuminates why sharing our divine encounters too freely creates a subtle but significant vulnerability. The danger lies not only in potential misunderstanding by others, but in the almost imperceptible shift within our own consciousness. For the ego, ever vigilant for opportunities to strengthen its position, subtly seeks to claim what rightfully belongs only to grace. What began as pure communion gradually transforms into spiritual credential or evidence of special status. The most profound spiritual masters throughout history have demonstrated this principle of sacred privacy in their own practice. Jesus himself exemplifies this timeless wisdom. Though he walked among thousands who constantly sought his attention, he consistently withdrew to pray in solitude. The Gospel accounts repeatedly mention how, at dawn, he would leave even his closest disciples to commune with the Father in secret. This deliberate choice to keep divine communion private acknowledges a profound truth, that the conversation between soul and Creator belongs not to the world of time, but to the realm of eternity. It exists in a dimension where human approval or understanding becomes irrelevant compared to the authenticity of the exchange itself. This hidden principle operates across all authentic spiritual traditions, revealing a universal pattern in how divine wisdom unfolds. Now I want to go even deeper into the seventh and final sacred thing Goddard advised us never to freely share: the full nature of our dreams. With remarkable insight, Goddard recognized dreams as the native language of the soul, a mystical bridge between the conscious mind and the eternal self. Through this nocturnal communion, divine wisdom speaks in the language of symbol and emotion, revealing guidance, healing, and even memories beyond our current lifetime. Yet despite their profound significance, dreams aren't meant for casual display or public consumption. They represent intensely personal communications between the individual soul and the divine presence. Coded messages specifically calibrated to the dreamer's unique spiritual frequency. The symbols appearing in your dreams carry meanings precisely tailored to your particular journey and level of understanding. This explains why sharing dreams prematurely often leads to confusion or distortion. Even well-meaning interpretations from others can interfere with the direct communion happening between your deeper consciousness and divine guidance. The external perspective, lacking access to your full spiritual context, inevitably filters the dream's meaning through its own limited understanding. If you've noticed how dreams sometimes communicate profound truths in ways that defy ordinary explanation, type dream language in the comments below. As we explore the sacred nature of dreams more deeply, we discover why they require special handling and how they connect to the ancient wisdom traditions across cultures. Dreams carry within them the seeds of our destiny, glimpses of potential, futures awaiting our conscious participation to manifest. When we share these sacred visions before their meaning has fully ripened within our understanding, we risk something precious: the distortion of their original message and power. Others, even with the best intentions, inevitably interpret our dreams through their own filters of fear, doubt, or worldly logic, subtly pulling the vision away from its higher truth and original vibration. Goddard offered practical wisdom for honoring these nocturnal revelations, recording them faithfully, holding them in prayer, and allowing the Spirit to gradually reveal their meaning in divine timing. This patient approach creates a protected incubation space where the dream's essence can unfold according to its own internal rhythm rather than being forced into premature interpretation. The transformative insight here is that dreams function as promises in motion, living potentials waiting for our conscious alignment and obedience to make them real in the physical world. By guarding them in appropriate silence, we honor their sacred origin and protect their delicate energy from dissipation through premature exposure. This hidden dimension of manifestation reveals why many spiritual traditions worldwide have emphasized the power of sacred silence around visions and revelations. Even Christ's journey reflects this principle with remarkable consistency. Though his ultimate destiny was known to him through divine revelation from the beginning, he didn't speak openly of it before the appointed hour. Every prophecy, every symbolic action found its perfect fulfillment only when the convergence of divine timing and purpose created the optimal conditions for manifestation. This cosmic pattern offers a blueprint for our own relationship with dreams and visions. What makes dreams especially worthy of reverence is their connection to dimensions beyond ordinary consciousness. Goddard recognized that dreams often contain fragments of eternity, glimpses of timeless wisdom, memories from other lifetimes, messages from our higher self, or echoes of divine teaching tailored specifically for our journey. These multidimensional communications open doorways between worlds that our rational mind alone cannot access. Yet Goddard emphasized that these profound dream revelations must be approached with appropriate reverence, not as trophies of mysticism to display our spiritual status, but as practical tools for genuine transformation. The authentic spiritual practitioner doesn't collect mystical experiences like souvenirs, but allows them to reshape consciousness from within, creating lasting change in perception, understanding, and behavior. This behind-the-scenes alchemy happens most effectively when dreams are given the sacred space they require, protected from premature analysis or exposure until their wisdom has been fully integrated into our being. If you've experienced dreams that seem to contain wisdom or guidance, beyond your ordinary thinking, type dream wisdom in the comments below. As we reflect on these 7 sacred things Goddard advised us to protect, a profound pattern emerges, a recognition that silence itself becomes a form of prayer when approached with the right consciousness. When we approach dreams with the reverence they deserve, they naturally guide our journey with increasing clarity. However, when we expose these sacred messengers carelessly, sharing them prematurely or with those unprepared to honor their significance, they often lose their transformative power. This pattern reveals a profound spiritual principle that extends far beyond dreams themselves. Silence functions as the guardian of truth. The most sacred dimensions of existence cannot be forced into manifestation, but must be received with reverence, lived with integrity, and expressed through the gentle rhythm of a life attuned to love. This sacred relationship between silence and spiritual truth appears across wisdom traditions worldwide, suggesting a universal law at work. The mystics, saints, and sages throughout history discovered that certain revelations flourish only in the protective sanctuary of reverent silence, not because truth fears exposure, but because its most refined frequencies require specific conditions to manifest fully in human consciousness. Now, I want to go even deeper into a remarkable threshold that eventually appears in every genuine spiritual journey, that profound moment when silence itself becomes prayer. As we mature spiritually, we often experience a subtle but significant shift where elaborate prayers and affirmations gradually give way to something far more powerful. Simple presence. Words fall away, and what remains is the still, direct knowing that divine presence is near. Goddard described this as the quiet realization of oneness, not something we explain intellectually, but something we become experientially. This hidden dimension of spiritual practice transcends technique or methodology. It represents a fundamental shift in consciousness where we move beyond doing prayer to being prayer. The boundary between the individual and the infinite grows increasingly transparent until communion happens naturally and continuously without effort or ritual. This represents the quantum leap from spiritual seeking to spiritual being. When the soul finally surrenders its desperate need to speak, to prove itself, or to be understood by others, something miraculous happens. It naturally enters heaven's harmony. At this level of consciousness, everything we've been discussing, those sacred encounters with God, the inner spiritual battles, our unseen purpose, purified intentions, quiet acts of forgiveness, hidden prayers and unspoken dreams, all merge into a single vibration, love. This unified field of consciousness becomes our natural state rather than a temporary experience. Goddard taught that this vibration of love represents our original nature, the essence of who we are beneath all conditioning and separation. To live consciously in that vibration is to become transparent to divine light, allowing it to pass through us without distortion. The ego's filters and agendas gradually dissolve until we become clear channels for grace to flow unobstructed into the world. This brings us to what Goddard identified as the ultimate purpose of human existence: to know your relationship with the Creator and to manifest it day by day. If you've sensed this purpose stirring within you, this call to conscious communion with the divine, type "divine purpose" in the comments below. As we integrate these sacred principles of spiritual discretion, we discover that they aren't restrictions, but invitations into a more authentic way of being. They reveal how maintaining appropriate boundaries around our most precious spiritual experiences creates the optimal conditions for genuine transformation. As we've journeyed together through these profound teachings from Neville Goddard, perhaps you've recognized dimensions of your own spiritual experience that deserve sacred protection. The wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent isn't about restriction, but about honoring the divine alchemy happening within you. In a world constantly pushing us to share everything, there's remarkable power in cultivating these sacred boundaries. The spiritual journey isn't about performance, but presence, not about proclamation, but embodiment. When we protect what's holy, it transforms us from within until our lives themselves become the testimony. If something in this exploration has touched a chord within you, if you've recognized aspects of your own spiritual journey reflected in these timeless principles, I'd love to know. Simply write "sacred wisdom" in the comments below. I've found that cultivating this reverence for the sacred dimensions of life creates a foundation for genuine spiritual growth that nothing else can provide. If this perspective has brought value to your path, consider subscribing to join our community of seekers dedicated to authentic spiritual development rather than spiritual performance. And if this message has resonated with your own inner knowing, perhaps leaving a like would be a beautiful way to acknowledge that connection we've shared throughout this exploration. There's a video right here on Neville Goddard's teaching about the power of awareness that perfectly complements what we've discovered today. It explores how cultivating the right consciousness creates the foundation for everything we've discussed. Click and continue with me there as we go even deeper into these transformative principles.